Hey, I explore world building through turning things into character designs. Each and every one of these designs existing in a living world. This vid is just my journey going through the process of coming up with a magic system that can handle a vast amount of variety while staying consistent. I've always been fascinated with character designs that can strike the balance between practicality and striking visual impact. I remember as a child watching Naruto and experiencing Gaara of the Sand. I thought it was really cool that he carried around a sand gourd. It made his image memorable, but also served a purpose in battle, having sand near him so he can manipulate it at will, regardless of the environment. So, as I got into art, I really also got into sitting on the toilet, waiting in line at the grocery store, zoning out in the shower, daydreaming about fictional worlds. Naturally, visual importance was something that popped into my mind quite often, which brings us to the many problems that I need to solve for my magic system. Magic through visual design. Because I'm taking inspiration from objects, concepts, I'm using a lot of visual aspects, so it's important that how the character looks informs what their magic ability does. Number 2 is it needs to be open-ended in a way where I can continue to add more and more. With that in mind though, it shouldn't introduce anything world-breaking. Now these are just personal preferences of mine, a low magic vibe, magic feels special to the average person, easy to explain, but now this is going to cause the most problems, but I couldn't go without it. I want to take major inspiration from my favorite game system, an old book released in 1989. So I will start there, using the mood essence to eventually shape the rest. You may be familiar with Dungeons & Dragons from Critical Role or Baldur's Gate. You sit around a table, everyone follows a rule set, rolling dice, pathing through a story led by the Dungeon Master. This book, released in 1989, second in its line, expanding from the old but not yet modernized like it is today. It is what brought me into world building. There's a special charm to how janky it is. Things weren't fully thought out when they were written down. Unlike modern games and systems, classes weren't balanced. They leveled up at different rates and shined in different situations. A level 10 rogue was about as strong as a level 5 warrior. Mages were incredibly powerful, capable of taking down dragons, but at the same time, a simple tackle and wrestle could take down the strongest unsuspecting mage. Monsters were unbelievably lethal. Here are just some examples, each with immediate one-shot mechanics, watered down in the later editions. Not to mention that death occurred at 0 HP. You could not bring someone who fainted back up. Even your own spells could kill you. Take for example, haste. It speeds you up to attack more in each round, but aging you 1 year, which is where a weird rule took place. Every time your body magically changes, you must roll a check. Failing kills your character immediately. Imagine spending years playing a character just to go out like that. It's unfair and dangerous, which is where the charm of this unrefined edition comes in. It forced preparation and info gathering. The vibe certainly had a unique feel to it, but to get a full grasp of it, we will have to take a deeper look at the spells. Here is a simple level 1 cleric spell. A fresh adventurer could use this. This spell enables the caster to enchant non-living objects no larger than a 5-foot cube. When the object is touched by anyone other than the caster, the apparent weight of the object increases, becoming 2 to 5 times the weight of the person touching it. This condition makes the object extremely difficult to move for anyone but the caster. It's a straightforward spell called Weighty Chest to stop bad guys from robbing your entire chest. But let's imagine a scenario here. John, the new cleric, walks out of town, eyes wild. The dragon arrives today, expecting its tribute. Yet he has no offering, just a pebble enchanted with weighty chest in his pocket. He steps forward, empty-handed, confused. The dragon stares. John throws the pebble, hitting it square in the eyes. The tiny stone suddenly weighs tons, piercing straight through the dragon's skull. The dungeon master closes his notes. Weeks of careful planning gone. It is unknown if that dungeon master still plays anymore. This did not happen to me in real life, by the way. This spell did get fixed in future books, but this is just one of the many spells that were not fully thought out, which creates these unintended powerful situations when used by a clever person, which I would love to take that essence into my world. Now these crazy situations were also created with how 2nd edition handled concentration. In modern D&D, many spells require you to only concentrate on one at a time. How this edition handles concentration is, it doesn't exist. You could reduce some boulders to pebbles, become invisible, fly in the sky, drop the pebbles and turn them back into boulders, and boom, you got stealth bombers. The ceiling for how creative and powerful you can get with crazy combinations was very high. So those are the takeaways that I want to have, which is the issue. If the magic system allows for adding more and more designs, each with their own magical abilities, and then you start considering about the combinations and all of that, that's a recipe for some crazy world-breaking stuff to happen, and it's the major issue that I'm going to have to tackle. It's tough to start with all these things considered, but before I figure out the contradictions, I need to have a base, and any questions that naturally arise will help me build the depth. The idea I came up with is runes inscribed onto objects, then tracing it correctly creates the right vibrations that would activate the spell effect. It's simple, easy to explain. The runes priming the object to react with the magical intent. This means the object the runes are inscribed on could change what the magic does. It's capable of being open-ended since I can continue to add magical effects. But what's really important here is, when it comes to character design, what object a character carries around clues you into their magics. This plays heavily onto the visual importance consideration. But what determines how objects influence spell effects? Intent of the object. A door is meant to be open, a bell is meant to be rung, a sword is meant to be cut. So runes on a sword would cause the spell to gear itself towards cutting. But what about a rock? Who gets to decide the intent of objects? That has to be living things that create the objects. To expand deeper on this, I thought more about intent. I imagine it to be a unique resource that a living being subconsciously pours into the objects that they create. A combination of consciousness, memories, energy, experiences, knowledge. Some beings having more than others, kind of like a soul. Because it's subconscious, you can't just make a door and declare it's meant to kill people. Lifelong experiences with doors have already shaped your understanding that they're meant to open and connect spaces. Intent only being created from experienced living beings means that there's no magic spells that can ever create life, only mimic. Or you can transfer life, like turning an arm into an animal. But let's wind back to how intent influences objects. When a smith makes a sword, they are imbuing it with intent, purpose. Runes engraved onto a natural rock would just cast the plain spell effect. But the rules here might have to be a little bit fuzzy since there's a lot of factors. Objects may have multiple intents, purposes. Spell effects might not combo much with certain objects. Like a spell effect that reduces the size of an object will probably treat most things equally regardless of the object's intent. But the goal here is to have a flexible blueprint that's not too loose but not too tight either to guide ideas so it feels like it fits in the context of the world while having room for creativity. All of this tackles my desire for unintended combinations and spell effects. I won't be able to know what the final effect would become until I start thinking about how the object and magic interacts. That there is fun. A recipe where I can sit down and daydream deeper and deeper, thinking about the different combinations. But it also had me thinking, instead of objects, what if you inscribe onto living beings themselves? Every body part having its own intent, like muscles are meant to move, skin is meant to protect, the spinal cord, the center of control and reflex. Body parts will always have the most powerful interactions because you're inscribing straight on the source of a living thing. Let's take for example a hypothetical reduce weight spell. On the skin, it will reduce the weight of incoming physical attacks because the skin's intent is meant to protect. On the spinal cord, it will allow the user to shift the weight of their body at will, like another limb. On the eyes, it is able to reduce the weight of any object it looks at. On the brain, it will be able to reduce the weight of entire object categories it thinks of. The more dangerous the inscribing is, the more powerful the effect will be. But body inscribing is a rare and difficult task. Take a look at this drawing. It is a large collaborative effort. The amount of people required, the amount of specialized talent needed, any body engraving at a deep level requires someone with a surgeon level of anatomy knowledge. Basic healing is a must. The process is long and arduous, layering in healing, numbing herbs, engraving, inscribing, measuring, resting, and then back to the drawing board of collaborative rune solving. A risk worth taking for some unique spell interactions. But again, this is more power in the system. There has to be some balance. To do that, I had to think about how spells are acquired, and I think I will take straight from 2nd edition as inspiration. A learning process where it takes a long time. But I'm gonna take it a notch up. Spells taking years to learn the base effect and years to figure out how to implement on each different object. You would need to refigure out how to compact the runes into the right form, given the differences in object sizes. depending on the size, you might have to develop new ways of tracing. For example, on a small eye, it may require a pin needle to be able to trace such fine runes. So when it comes to casting, it's going to take minutes to hours to cast a single spell effect. Along with no permanent effect, the time-consuming nature dampens chances for crazy magic interactions, but also would create a culture where preparation is necessary and knowledge of what someone does is very important. Insane combinations that would break the world would now be rare, but I need it to be immensely rare. I wanted to think a little bit more about the culture around inscribing magic. It has to be secretive because sharing knowledge of your spells makes you very vulnerable. But there is still a culture of collaboration. My mind wanders to people working together, each with different roles, which got me pondering about specializations, those who have an affinity towards different aspects of inscribing. Object implanters are quick at theorizing the best object to implant the magical effect onto, and are fast at translating the runes to fit onto the new object size. Body part implanters are the most rare because beyond talent, it requires the most prerequisites: anatomy knowledge, basic healing magics themselves, most specializing in specific body parts. Permamancers are those who specialize in increasing the duration of spells. Forecasters increase range, and learners are people who are able to pick up a lot of spells easier and faster. Since this is a pretty selfish role, they aren't sought out to collaborate much. What makes collaboration so powerful is that someone can enhance a spell, like implementing it on a body part, without needing to fully understand to be able to use it themselves. I think of each spell as its own language, but you don't really need to be fluent in it to contribute, as long as you share a common language for communicating ideas, like how a skilled writer can help shape a story even if it's written in a different tongue. This creates really sought out people, especially those who are masters at their gift. The best permamancers capable of creating the only permanent spell effects. The best body implanters can work into the deepest organs. Though, brain implements still remain a whispered legend among those who inscribe. The list goes on, but I love the idea that there are some legendary figures who are major players in the world. There's also other collaboration. When multiple people know the same spell, they can refine it together, making it more efficient. This leads to stronger spell effects with reduced casting time and smaller rune structures. Of course, the level optimization can take years of shared research. On the flip side, I love the idea of brute force inscribing. One person, no collaboration, just sheer scale. It takes far less research, but demands massive space and casting time. I can picture a lone inscriber spending a year carving out a single spell the size of a house, then burning through days to cast it, limited only by how long they can stay awake. I spent so much time establishing how powerful things can get, but this question still stands. Despite learning and casting times, given enough time and people, wild things can still happen. My very first video, I came with the idea of night guards who carry around anti-magic bells. When you're protecting a town, having a bell that stops all magic is very useful when threats can be incredibly diverse. The idea was expanded into the anti-magic kingdom, which influenced every other groups of people in the entire continent. This is where I expanded another time. The Hush Iron Kingdom sets a tone for inscribers as it stomps out the flames before it turns into forest fires. A major opposing force is a natural external situation to hamper down the chances of some insane rune combinations that break the world. Since inscribers are hunted, there are less of them to develop crazy magical interactions, less resources to fully devote to research. But to get an idea of the extent of their reach and their methods, we have to talk about anti-magic. A simple spell, it turns off magical effects besides itself. Written on a bell, the sound shuts down magic within range. There's a special reason why I said tracing it correctly creates the right vibrations that would activate the spell effect. In a sense, all magical effects activate through specific vibrations. That is why it is possible to activate runes written inside the body, even though the wound on top has healed, because the runes only prime the object to interact with the vibrations that reach it. The anti-magic kingdom, having the most research spent on a single spell, has created efficient writings to the point where runes are engraved onto the major city. Even walking on roads create the correct vibrations to activate the spell. The city is composed of primarily dome structures, their convex exterior scattering sound outwards in all directions. Nestled deep within a tall valley, this creates a soft, diffuse hum that lingers in the air. Not loud, but always present. Runes etched onto chimes sway gently in the wind, each note reinforcing the city's anti-magic aura. The entire landscape seems to vibrate a serene yet biting feel. Any spell attempted to be casted in this town are completely voided. The bells they craft are written so well that the average person can activate it with a simple shake. Even rare armor with anti-magic properties that activate through movement sound exists. However, anti-magic is not perfect. It stops all effects from happening and ceases existing ones. But it does not stop the results of magic. If a forest has been burnt down by a magical flame, the anti-magic bells won't revert the forest back to normal. If a boulder has been summoned above the city, the anti-magic effect would not stop the boulder from crashing down. This weakness is the genesis or a vital group in the Hashan Kingdom. The Arbiters of Silence, aka the Erasers. God, I hate naming stuff. A small group of highly skilled inscribers. Their existence is a contradiction in and of itself. Another way you can see them are as mage hunters. These guys are passionate about inscribing to the point where they are skilled enough to be here. Too passionate though, and they might find the fangs of the group turned around against themselves. Most of them find sympathy with the hunted, but understand that they themselves are a necessary evil. There's a cool dynamic here, and it's probably an area I would explore if I were to actually write a story in this world. They have a culture where they don't share anything about their abilities with each other, except only to the leader. They are each very capable of killing inscribers, but they have another main function that their skills work towards. What's unique about this group is who they decide to go after, a process where evidence is presented in a court and is reviewed between prominent members of the kingdom and division themselves. When a choice is made, the division goes out and hunts the mages. Each of the division represents a particular body part. Some notable parts that are integral to this process are the nose and eyes of the group. The eyes is a person who can document evidence through their ability of capturing light. The nose is one who can smell powerful inscribers who could pose a threat. I can go more in depth in everything mentioned today, but in general, that is the gist. Thanks for watching.